Hello there everyone and welcome to this next video on Visual Studio and Visual Basic .NET tutorials. In this one what we're going to do is we're going to look at variable manipulation and also the use of text boxes. So the first thing we're going to do is create a new project. So off we go. We've selected our programming language as Visual Basic. We scroll down to our Windows Form app .NET Framework and we click Next. We're going to give it a name, so let's call this one Textboxes. Okay, and make sure it's saved in the correct folder and just click Create. Once this happens, just double check your project to make sure that it all looks correct and it looks like it's working. So far so good. Looks like I've got my toolbox, my solution explorer, I've got the correct icon over here, I've got my code window and the little drop down box here. Just double click that, make sure I've got that. Yep, all looks good to me. And I've got my properties window. Wonderful. So all we're going to do is we are going to add in a text box and a button. So you can search for that as well if you want to. I'm just using a standard text box for this tutorial. Here we are. There we are. So there's my two objects. And I can even make my form smaller if I want to. Make it a little bit more specific. There we go. Tiny as it is. I don't like it that small. I'm going to make it a little bit bigger. So what you'll find with these buttons is that you can resize it to whatever size you like, which might be okay. I can also change the text in there and change that to submit, which will change the text. We know how to change the font now, so I'll click the three buttons and it'll allow me to change the font. Let's make it bigger. Make it 20. There you go. Look at that. And this one here, it looks like all I can do is change the size of this using this little side button here, which lets me expand the size of the box, but only lengthways. Okay, so I've got a single text box and I've got a button so far. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to change the size in this text box to make it a little bit bigger, so when we type in we can actually see what's going on. Makes the box a little bit bigger, that's okay, no problems there. And if you run this, what you'll find is the fact that you can type in whatever you want, but it doesn't do anything. And obviously it doesn't do anything. That should be obvious. And the reason why that's obvious is because I've not actually programmed anything. So nothing happens. I can click submit all I like. Nothing works. So with a text box, you don't actually have a name property because nothing appears on the screen. But notice it has a text property. If I type in there, for the text box, you'll notice that it doesn't have a proper text property. There's no text that appears. But in the properties itself, it does have a text property that I can type in. And if I type in the text property box, you'll notice that what appears in there is the text that I can write and edit and change when I run my program. So that text property is going to become quite useful a little bit later on. Now, in order for me to program and get access to this box here, I need to give it a good self-documenting identifier. So, like before when I called my buttons, I called them btn. For the text box, I'm going to call it txt. And for this, I'll call it txt input. My button should have a name also, but just look at what I've done there. In Visual Studio, in order to save time and speed up what you're doing, I've clicked on that text box there, and the last property I edited was the name property of the text box. Now watch what happens when I click the button and I don't press anything else, I just start typing. You'll notice that the last property edited on any object will enable you to edit the property of any other object that you click on without clicking over and over again. And that's just to save us a little bit of time. So I've just clicked on the button, started typing, and it's automatically started editing the name property of my button. BTN submit is the name I'm going to go for, and then we're ready to go. So I told you before, I'm going to do some text box and variable manipulation. So this is going to be quite straightforward. If I double click my submit button, it creates the event handler for the submit button. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to create a variable. So remember how they start with dim. Okay, dim is short for dimension, and I'm going to say name variable. Okay, and this is going to be of what kind of type of data that I'm going to use. Now I need to think about this every time I create a variable. I'm going to store in there the name of somebody, so the name of myself. So my name, it consists of lots of different characters, so it's going to be of type string. So dim name variable as string. So dim and as and string are all the same color. That's because the keywords. Light blue means that I've created a variable in Visual Studio. So I've created my variable, and at the moment it has a green squiggly line under it. That's trying to tell you that you've not used a variable. If I hover over that, it tells me that it's unused. Now it's saying, John, you've declared memory, but you're not actually using it. So, sort your life out, get it used. So that's exactly what I'll do. Name underscore variable, accept it with the tab button, and then what do I do next? Well, I want the text from the text box itself to be brought across. So how can I do that? I need to say assign the name variable, or assign it using the equal symbol, my txt, and notice what appears. This is why we use self-documenting identifiers. Here it is, txt input, and if I put a full stop, it gives me access to all of the properties, every single property of my text box. Look at them all. Incredible. Look at all them little spanners. That's my properties. So, wait a second. If I go back and look at my txt input box, look at all these properties here. Enabled, hide selection, max length. If I go back over here and I've got my full stop in there, visible is there. Max length is there. So that means that with a full stop, I can access any property of that object. That's pretty useful. So which property do I want to bring all the information from the text box over? I'm going to need the text property of the text box. Because if you remember, when I typed in the text box, the text property, it changed, didn't it? There it is. I want this property to pass over any information that it's got inside of it and store it in this variable. Okay? And once I've done that, I'm just gonna print that out using a message box. I'm gonna print out name variable. Okay? So off we go. Let's just run that and see what happens. If I type in anything inside there, let's type my name again. Submit. It produces John. So the code says, take the name variable, take the text property, take the text from it, put it inside the name variable and output it to the screen. So far so good. However, that message is not very good, is it? It's not very clear what I'm actually producing. Although it looks like the name, you could type anything in there. So what if I said in here with speech marks as a string, if I said your name is colon space, okay? There's a red line there because I'm trying to do two things. I'm trying to output a string message and a variable itself. So what the program's saying is, I don't know what you want me to do with these two sides of the argument. Do you want me to put this with this? How do you want me to do it? And we use in Visual Studio the ampersand. Okay, the ampersand allows us to do a very particular thing. It allows us to concatenate a string from the left and a variable from the right. And concatenate just means, it's a fancy word for squishing two things together. So it's saying, take the string, squish it with whatever's inside the variable, and then produce it to the screen. So if I run this now, we're starting to get a little bit more of an accurate message for the user to understand exactly what's going on. So if I type in there, John, it says your name is John. So it says your name is from my message box there, and I have an ampersand and whatever's inside the variable, which is John, because I typed that in my text box. Now once I've done that and I've outputted it from my txt.text box there, I don't want my name to remain in that text box. I'm not crazy. So txt input dot text. Okay, you could do this one of two ways. You could either clear it manually by saying that text box dot text property is assigned the value of nothing, or you can use another property that comes with the box that's just called clear. Okay, and clear will remove the contents of the box altogether. So let's just have a look at that. And here we are. And if I say Johnny's put in there, your name is John, I click OK, and look what happens. It's cleared it from my program. Now I've just had to click back inside that box. And I am a very, very lazy person and a lazy programmer. So I want things to be done the most efficient way possible, or I need to think about helping the user out as much as possible. So what you can also do is you can make sure that the text box is focused when we finish clearing the box. So what does focus do? Focus allows the cursor to be placed back inside the text box so I don't have to click anymore. Yeah, very lazy. So if I type in John, submit it, your name is John, I click OK, and look now the cursor is blinking, ready for me to type back in my name. Not bad. And that's all really I wanted to cover in this short tutorial. I've got my name variable as a string. I've got my variable being assigned whatever's inside the text box. And I've got my message box in there, and I concatenate it using the ampersand with the name variable, and then I clear the box, and then I focus the cursor back inside the box. And as always, thanks for watching. Be sure to join us in the next video.